Hey everybody, it's Big Money Week on Hacking TV as Discovery writes a big check.
The folks at Vice launched their long-awaited nightly HBO newscast. So is the world of news being remade?
And the world of virtual reality. What is the future of storytelling? We'll take a tour.
All that plus CNN's digital hiring binge, a former MTV exec's new network, and This American's Life new sharing app.
Yep, it is absolutely time to hack.
I'm Saul Hansell.
And I'm Steve Rosenbaum.
And this is
Hacking TV. Oh, see, but you paused there. You didn't. We were supposed to do it in stereo.
And this is
Hacking TV. There we go.
Yeah,
That's
okay. It's directed.
It's ripped off from Shark Tank for sure.
Okay.
So busy week, a lot going on. Always a good week when people are writing checks, right? Because that's good.
Except when I'm writing checks. I like it better when I'm cashing checks. Thank you very much. But
I didn't say it was better when we're writing checks. I said it's better when they're writing checks.
Okay. So a $100 million check has been written by Discovery Communications. We don't know exactly who it is payable to, however.
If it's a blank check, we could just maybe put our name in there. But so let's just talk about what Discovery's doing. They're creating a new property called Group 9 Media, which is going to be an amalgam of a number of properties. Thrillist, The Dodo, Now This News, and there's one other which I wasn't familiar with.
Seeker, which is actually two. Philip DeFranco, SourceFed, which Discovery had bought and they're throwing into this thing, and Seeker Digital Network, which I haven't heard of. But the first three have something interesting in common. Do you happen to know what Thrillist, Now This, and Dodo might have in common by any chance?
They are all part of the Kenny Lair cabal. The
Kenny Lair extended family, although not too extended.
Yeah. So the Dodo is an animal site that was founded and run by his daughter, and Thrillist is Ben Lair's company, which is his son. So it is.
And Now This is Kenny Lair is a venture capitalist, former head flack for AOL and then AOL Time Warner. And his venture group, now Lair Hippo Ventures, has invested in all of these companies. Now this being something related to TV news in the short attention span age.
But interestingly enough, Now This, without one of the things that they have always lacked is a charismatic CEO character in that. And there's never been you can never say, whenever you said to someone, who runs Now This News, there was always kind of a head scratching, like, oh, there are a bunch of people there. But shortly after they started, they hired Ethan Jordan, who had run CNN for a long time. He was, a pedigree. He just quit after Kenny decided that the only thing they were going to do was Vine, and all of their content was going to be under 20 seconds, which is a limited canvas to work with. Now, one of the things I find interesting about Now This that's not mentioned in any of the press coverage is Comcast NBC is owns a chunk. I thought owned a big chunk, but they seem to be not part of the roll-up. I'm not really sure. Maybe they got bought out.
Maybe they will end up owning a little bit of Group 9, depending on all the valuations. I mean, there's a lot of investment banking work because each of these companies has their own owners, so they have their own valuations and so on. I mean, this is basically like a CMO for the digital media world. You take a bunch of properties, none of which have really hit the ball out of the park, and swish them around and see if somebody will buy the whole bundle without thinking too hard.
What did you think about Ben Lair's quote, "We're trying to build a Time Warner"?
That's what people say. Now This has been saying they want to be the CNN for millennials, but it's not so clear that it's working, right? We're in this little period where maybe there's some interesting news happening in the United States of America. Maybe a certain amount of people might care whether a, psychopathic narcissist is going to get the nuclear codes. News organization has not been heard of you've never seen anybody say, and here's an interesting story that Now This did about the biggest news story of the decade. So I can't say that they've got a lot of momentum.
You know, so here's the thing. By the way, we should add in here that the second largest owner of this new roll-up is Axel Springer. They've been plunking down good hard-earned cash. They're now the owners of Business Insider.
Yes.
So, you know, you're starting to see a handful of players wanting to dominate the digital space.
Well, you have a couple. You have two phenomena. You have the dominate strategy. Well, dominate. I mean, Business Insider, for whatever it is a thing, and you can decide how much bigger it is, but it's got a certain audience, and you can value it. It's a business. I mean, and hats off. We've talked about it when the deal got done to Henry Blodgett for that. Now, these other properties. I mean, Thrillist is a nice little men's blog. And the other one, I mean, I don't know what the dodo is. I mean, there's a lot of animal blogs in the world, but there's a lot of people who like looking at animals. So there's a business there of some modest sort. But that's not what's going on here. What's going on here is all of the big cable companies, basically, are trying to expand their digital footprint one way or the other. I mean, you saw Univision buying up Gawker. And what did they else say? They bought The Onion. I mean, Univision has been trying to build multicultural millennial stuff to out Viacom. Well, the octogenarians fight it out.
By the way, in the really bad guy category, I got to throw in here, somehow lost in all of this politics stuff is the fact that Peter Thiel, who funded the whole Gawker lawsuit thing, is now writing $1.2 million check to Donald Trump.
I thought you were going to mention that Kenny Lear is a major boardroom player on the Viacom board, but that's just another coincidence.
I guess I didn't know that. And by the way, so on the other hand, you know, Discovery has had mixed results in its acquisition of digital properties in the past. It bought How Stuff Works.
Yeah.
For $300 million a long time ago, like 2 internet lifetimes ago. But that was not that did not light the world on fire.
Now it's interesting. Philip DeFranco is what's he like, late 20s now, doing a Wayne's World newscast, and he was like 2 years ago was like a big hit on YouTube. I don't know whether he still is. I mean, I would definitely merge Philip DeFranco into Now This News, but
well, that's a good idea. You should charge for that.
Yeah, I try. And we'll get to, when we get to topic 2, we'll talk about the pluses and minuses of anchors versus not in the news world. Now This News has tried lots of stuff. Look, I've got to say, it makes me happy when people do experiments, when people try stuff. It makes me more happy in the news world, which needs it. It makes me more happy when people try stuff that adds something new to the world. And when the baseline that people get to when they start with video news is they realize that they can have somebody do a voiceover of reading 200 words, about a minute's worth of copy about something that happened, and splice together, some stolen video and some sliding still pictures around and put some big type on to make it look like an explainer. And that just falls flat. There's no evidence that these generic explainer and headline videos have any traction at all. But that's what so many people, including Now This, have started out trying to do. And, there's a piece of why that might make sense, but it's not. It doesn't get you very far. And they need to think of something else to earn their keep.
So in other news...
Is there other news than news? Yes. What else happened in other news?
Pluto raised $30 million more.
is that more $1 million because it's a planet, or more $30 million because it's not a planet, but it is settling for the slander of all the people who call it a planet? No.
So Pluto is an online video streaming service, which they say is targeted to cord cutters, so it's a 30 million Series B, which brings the valuation of the business to 140 million bucks, and the funding comes from ProSieben of Germany. So we're seeing a theme.
You know anything about them?
ProSieben?
Yeah, I've never heard of them.
Yeah, no, I know. They're a big German television owner of television properties. Yeah.
So Pluto had an okay idea. They basically said, we're going to go take everybody's clip videos and put them on a series of loops, because some people like to have that dumb experience of flipping the channel changer between a bunch of channels. So you can make, string a bunch of YouTube videos together and call it a channel, and then people can flip around and it looks like free TV. And apparently they've got a little bit of traction on this.
So my sources tell me that the $30 million raise was based on growth in audience.
It's there's something to be said for easy wins.
The only thing I don't know the answer to is how much of Pluto's content comes from YouTube and how much comes from other places, and if they've really kind of consolidated all their risk in being a YouTube repackager, wouldn't the likely buyer and or unhappy party in a negotiation be YouTube? But I haven't been on.
Listen, I talked to them a couple of years ago. I haven't talked to them since. Nick Grauf, who runs it, is a smart guy, and they had content. I mean, everybody's clip video content is freely available. It's not freely available, but enough people want distribution for all these video clips that they're making that it's not that hard to come up with all kinds of deals. The question is, if any of this actually turns into something that people really, really want to watch, then the economics change.
Agreed. And according to TechCrunch, they have 75 content partnerships with TV networks and studios, including Sky, NBC, A&E, CBS, Bloomberg. What that means is anybody's guess. Could mean they have permission to grab their YouTube videos and play them like channels. But worth watching. Pluto, good for them. They raised $13 million in their A and $30 million in their B. So $43 million is not an insignificant amount of cash to have in the bank. Starts to seem like those good old bubble days again.
Indeed.
So the third one is Everyday Networks, and I'll let you go first, and then I'll kind of tell you what I know about what they're doing.
I don't know anything about what they're doing. It's run by Andy Schoen, who was a former MTV dude, and that's about as far as I've gotten.
So I know Andy from my MTV days, and he's a good guy and he's smart, and they're kind of hard at work building an OTT network, and part of
about what?
Well, they've scooped up a bunch of assets. They scooped up Fuel TV. They scooped up a travel network. So they're actually out kind of putting together a series of vertical. And spirit of full disclosure, Andy and I met last week. Along with his partner, I know a little bit about the business from what I've read, and a little bit from what he shared in a deck. But it's what I liked about it. Let me tell you what I like about it. Anyone who's honest will tell you that OTT is going to be darts at a board for a while. And, you reminisce back to the early days of cable. Nobody was sitting around going, oh, yeah, the Weather Channel, that's a good idea. Or CNN, we really need more news. Or A&E, get me arts. I mean, people took flyers on things. Some of them worked, some of them didn't. Some of them morphed into other things. But OTT feels like we're in that same chapter.
Okay, that would be very logical. My whole question is, what do we mean by OTT? Because some people mean it's linear networks that you get without buying them from the cable company, and some people think there's something else.
Channels delivered over IPTV, over
Linear channels where if you want to watch the show, you have to tune in at 8 o'clock.
Well, most of the OTT plays I'm seeing have some combination of a live stream that you can join in progress and then the ability to access it and say, no, I want to see just that show and that show.
Yep.
It's both VOD and on-demand streaming.
I just want to put in a little prediction here. 10 years from now, but today you can't do this, but 10 years from now, you're going to be able to, if you tune in the middle and you sort of are interested, you'll be able to push a button and start that episode from the beginning, which Time Warner actually put into their network a couple years ago, but it is not part of most of these things. If you go and you hit somebody's stream halfway through and you want to see from the beginning, you have to wait till tomorrow when they post the damn episode file. It's really stupid.
I predict that 10 years from now, we will all have a hovercraft that floats over our head, and it will hold kind of a pot, like a round glass circle that will float in front of us, and it will allow us to both watch TV and communicate, and actually we'll be able to transport ourselves virtually.
Isn't that just upside down? The image in Wall-E where we're in the hovercraft drinking our supersized soda and communicating with the world and watching TV.
And President Trump will continue to lord over us.
I think it's His Imperial Highness Trump will continue to make sure that we are all taken care of.
Yes. We'll get discounts at his hotels. Which, by the way, have you noticed that the bookings at his hotels have fallen out of the sky?
I'm just not getting invited to the same parties I used to be.
I'm sorry. Just 1 second of politics. Who would imagine that a guy who's built high-end, kind of aspirational venues and now is pandering to low-end, bottom-of-the-market, angry people would have trouble booking rooms at $800 a whack? Shocking.
Yeah, well...
Oh, and by the way, and all of his staff, which happens to be of all manner of immigrants, I'm sure that they're robbing him blind.
What they aren't doing is contributing to his campaign, according to one story I saw. But,
shocking. Anyway, sorry, I digress. So that's the money news. Money news. Three different startups. So let's get to content. So Vice News launched. It was originally scheduled to launch a month ago. Then it got pushed back. Then it launched last week. You and I have both seen little bits and pieces of it, not a whole lot. Anyone want to vote for
here's
awesome?
What they've got. I don't look at it and say, I love this yet, but I think Vice, say compared to Now This News and a bunch of others, is a very interesting organization and is good for the world. And the reason why is they send people places and they find out things that people didn't know before, which is this crude yardstick to measure sort of journalistic national product, right? The thing starts with a generic but 12-year-old sounding girl reading a headline summary the way I described before, like not a lot of value added, not a lot of personality. But then it goes in without any anchor to a series of clips, including stuff where they talk to people. And, there's a bunch of stuff raised by that. First one is, do we think that not having a central human being makes any sense on the medium? You've produced lots of TV shows. What do you think?
Pick a side of the debate and I'll take the other side because, I understand wanting to disassemble some of the tropes of old style television. I get that anchors are somewhat old media, but you got to replace it with something. I mean, I would have preferred Max Headroom. I'm a Max Headroom fan.
Well, look, I mean, so let's look at a couple things that we know. One, every place in the world that does TV news uses presenters of some sort. They're not all the Ted Baxter variety. Two, what's going on YouTube? We talked about Philip DeFranco. The thing that connects with people on YouTube is a human being looking into the webcam and talking about the world with a perspective you get to know. What are we doing here? And all of the podcasts that people actually listen to, most of them, you're learning about the world through this perspective. So when I started CTV, I said, and this was one of the many things I got a lot of shit for, you want to have an anchor, you just don't want to have a stupid anchor. And we could, there are a lot of ways we could make it not stupid. And we kept saying, we want our anchors to be like bloggers, sort of commenting and aggregating, right? Telling you, here's something interesting, here's why it's interesting, here's how it relates to a context, or here's a little update. Now we go to see that. But you don't need it to be happy talk.
So let's pause for a second and watch the Vice News trailer, because I think it's 30 seconds and then we'll be back. Hold on one second. So here we go.
Vice News tonight. This is where he died. The spot just in there. You can see the still a pool of blood.
2 milligrams of parfentanil can kill 100 people.
He asked me if I had my Sharia memorized.
Donald wasn't my first choice, wasn't my second choice.
Right. But he's the nominee. The world is changing. So should the way you see it. Vice News tonight. Here to take you everywhere there's a story. 5 nights a week.
So,
do you want to watch the show that trailer promises?
It's on HBO, so I got to start by borrowing my parents' login.
You might have bought the file. Whoever hacked it, they're the one who owns it.
Hold on, silence. I'm not sure. I mean, I think it's better than basic cable for them. I think basic cable is going to be hard. I mean, they've already been on HBO with whatever it was, quarterly, monthly. What was their? It was
like a magazine series that they would do in like 13-week, seasons every now and then.
Look, I think the thing that's going to be hard, if I were sitting in their chair, is it's a daily show. By the time you get to your HBO thingy at the end of the day, you've been hit by Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, email, radio, podcasts. A lot of people have been in line telling you what happened that day. So that what they've decided to do is not try and keep up with the daily breaking news thing, and instead say, here's something else important and interesting that's daily-ish but not relevant to today's news. I think that's a tricky formula.
I agree with you. I mean, I think that Vice has the best stuff they've done is where they go places that other people aren't, or places where their sort of millennial kids with, cell phone cameras can get under the radar, and they've done interesting reporting from the Ukraine and all kinds of places. And that's, value added. It would be value added even if we were all watching Walter Cronkite, because there were a whole bunch of stories that Walter Cronkite never covered. So that part makes sense. I think you're right. There's a question of how timely are they. And I think as they get a little bit bigger, right, they need to find a way to add value in a way that they can hold their head up high on the stuff everybody else is covering.
And by the way, let's not forget that in the midst of all this, they're also launching a finance channel, a finance show.
They're going to launch 6 channels. And so, look, but they raised $1 gazillion. They've got to figure, but they hired Josh, how do you pronounce his last name?
Tarandal,
who has done some very good things, including helped remake Business Week into a much, much better magazine, and he understands basic news. So,
but not video.
No, But again, I don't think they're there yet, but I can't think of anybody else who even has a leg to stand on in video news as having done anything that even might be sustainable.
All right, so
is Vice versus nobody.
According to Variety, Vice Money will go live at news.vice.com/money on October 9th.
We passed that, so we should have all watched it by now.
Well, or at least have heard something about it, right? I mean,
and
are they competing with Cheddar? Are they trying to
sounds? Since everybody only wants to talk about millennials, which makes no sense when it comes to news. But that's what they talk about. I mean, the oldest millennials, the 35-year-olds, is starting to be an interesting market for newscasts, but 25-year-olds aren't until they turn 35.
So meanwhile, CNN is buying up they're literally just spraying the room, buying talent, right?
And I'm not sure I totally see where it's going, but I know they bought Brian Stelter and the guy from Politico.
Well, hold on. Let's start with Brian. I gotta say, in this election, if someone's winning the election on the journalism side, at least in terms of my feeds and what's getting to me, I'd say it's Brian. I think he's killing it.
Well, he and Dylan Byers, in addition to being on TV, are making their little corner of CNN Money one of the relevant places to read media news. And
by the way, Brian is on, literally starting on the breaking 4 a.m. newscast, and then he's on till 11 o'clock at night. I don't know how he's doing it.
Brian, the reason the Times hired him is he was going to college and running the blog that every single person in the TV news industry read. So he's got a lot of energy. It was a good hire. And it shows my hypothesis. The way you create value in news is by saying things that other people don't say that are interesting. And so what did? They hired Andrew Kaczynski and a whole team from BuzzFeed who'd made waves because they're just better at finding documents than everybody else. They were the ones that unearthed all the tapes of Donald Trump on the Howard Stern show from a decade ago, and they've been doing a lot of this. And it's a very interesting little team, and BuzzFeed has been doing lots of good stuff, but...
Well, before we run out of time, we have two more things we got to hit. So let's talk about This American Life. So I love this piece of news. I love that we started talking last week about podcasts as the new kind of on-demand targeted editorial smart, and the fact that they're thinking about video and how to evolve what they're calling shortcuts from This American Life into little mini video pieces, I think is brilliant. I think bravo.
So they have a little app that connects to a transcript they make of the show, and you can pick an in and an out point and turn it into a little bit of video, because the video sharing infrastructure is just way more built out than the audio sharing infrastructure. There isn't a good way to paste an audio clip into your Facebook feed, but you can paste a video into your Facebook feed. So it's a nice technical arbitrage, but I think it misses the bigger point, right? Yes, people should be able to make their own clips, but I think the programming needs to be more structured. You need to be able to fast forward and, deal with not 1 hour long This American Life, but a series of segments, and be able to share, save, manipulate each segment separately. And nobody is building the standards or in any useful way to add the structure that's needed to all this audio.
But that will come. All right, so last but not least, virtual reality. We started talking about this last weekend. I wrote a piece that's on Huffington Post called Virtual Reality Comes Home, which is the Future of Storytelling Festival, which is Charles Melcher's now 5-year-old enterprise. I have not stopped thinking about it since last Sunday.
What did you see that really impressed you?
That's not the I can answer that question, but I think given the fact that we really only have a minute left, the thing that I loved and that is that he understood that it's not just a conference room with a bunch of people wearing headgear. He partnered with the people that do the live event stuff. He had music. He had theater. He had the place was an environment. The VR was part of the environment, but it wasn't the only thing. Like when you weren't in a VR experience, you didn't feel like you were waiting in line to do something else, which was great.
And what vision did that give you? If you imagine all those people taking those ideas and building them out over the next 5 years, what do you think is going to be, expanded? What are we going to see?
So the mix of digital and physical was really interesting. There was a VR exhibit called Birdie, which you basically laid down on this table and put on this headgear, and there was a fan in front of you, and then you went flying, and as you moved your arms, it wasn't simply sit in a chair and have something come at you. It was participatory.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing was the energy of the place. Like there were young people, there were old people, there were people there that understood VR, there were people that were experiencing it for the first time. It felt more like, well, the phrase they used was playground, and it did feel like a playground. And by the way, my apologies, but we just chewed through another hackable half hour. So here we are at the end of our show.
Well, there's a lot to chew on. This podcast too is participatory, and if you've made it this far, please participate by dropping us a line by email, hackers@hackingtv.news, by Twitter @hackingtv, and especially by helping other people find this podcast by reviewing it on whatever platform you like to get your podcasts.
And
like,
with
for
that,
example, Tubes.
Have an excellent week, and we'll see you next week.
Keep on hacking.